and welcome to the Everyday Board Game Podcast with Daniel.
And Daniel.
Good morning, Daniel. How are you doing today?
Again, not morning. Not morning. Stop it.
I wonder if that should be a running gag now. I mean, maybe.
I mean, we've done it for what, 4 weeks now?
Yeah, at least. I know I've been pushing it pretty hard. No, so Daniel, I mean this has been a fairly uneventful week for us. I don't think we've even talked since last Monday.
No, we talked on Tuesday.
Oh yeah. So, but almost an entire week of just
Almost an entire week, yeah.
That explains what I got a lot of good sleep this week. Really relaxed. And I'm sorry, but no, we needed it after last week's debate. We really did.
Oh, we needed to recharge our batteries.
Yeah.
Stupid Lupin Louie.
If you hadn't seen it yet, or no, that you're thinking charity, or was it under children's games?
It was children's game.
Yeah. So we need to talk about that real quick for the podcast, because if you're listeners to our podcast, you know that the whole premise of our top 8 debates are to get you to decide which is the best of certain categories of games, and we hope you can find better games because of it. However, we are also incredibly passionate about games, which is, of course, the point, right?
Why we do a board game podcast.
Yeah, this is why we do a board game podcast. So we have agreed that we are going to start banning a few games from our top 8 debates, just because of how incredibly divided we are on it. I still disagree with a lot of them, and you still disagree with me on a lot of it. So we're gonna ban a few of the games. So, and we'll discuss that if.
Well, best way to describe it is, if you guys ever watched a court drama, you know how you get to strike jurors. Well, we're only allowed so many strikes.
Right. Like, we know that one of us is far too biased on one of them, or like one of a it's basically it's impossible at this point for us to remove our bias from it.
Mm-hmm.
And we both have very conflicting biases, and not that either of us are wrong, even though you state otherwise. It's just to prevent like absurd arguments in the future and getting like a stalemate at some point.
And not only that, staying up really late.
Yeah, that was a late podcast. It was so worth it, but man, we were heated. I went to bed angry,
I stayed up and went and killed some things on the PlayStation 4.
Thank you for clarifying that it was on PlayStation 4. Oh man, that's silly.
Well, I had to make sure I clarified.
Yeah, I killed things on PlayStation 4. A little too long of a pause there. Speaking of killing things on the PlayStation 4, our topics have nothing to do with that today. We're talking. No. Our discussion topic this week is a pretty straightforward one, but we hope that this will help when we can start having game nights again. Now that the vaccine is rolling out, things are opening back up, getting a little cleaner, getting a little more in tune, and we're looking forward to our next actual, times doing this. So when you can have those again, we're hoping this list will help you out.
Yeah, and do you want to tell the people what it is?
No, you go ahead.
And what we're asking here is, what do you do to create the best atmosphere for playing board games?
That's right. And
this was a tough topic.
It was tough. I did come up with 8 that I feel pretty strongly about, and ones that I actively do.
I came up with 4 that I actively do, and that is very important for a good game night. The other 4, they're important, but it's kind of a hit or miss, especially the number 6 on my list here.
Yeah.
Or 5. Yeah. I think it's number 5.
I agree. Okay, cool. Then this will be interesting. I bet more than half of ours are going to be crossovers, though.
I know at least one for sure, because I got you to start doing it.
We'll see. Okay, we'll see. All right. Okay. Now I'm just curious, to be honest. But anyway, as always, we ask our viewers at home, what do you think is the best steps that you do to create a board game atmosphere? And what's great about it is we got a lot of responses. I was a little delayed posting this time. I only posted it what, maybe 4 or 5 hours ago?
Yeah, probably about 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So
Yeah. And it's 6 right now, so 5 hours, and we have about 36 comments, maybe even more by the time we get there.
from what I'm looking at here, 48.
Ooh, even better. So yeah, we're excited to talk about that. But
But before
before,
we get going into the topic, what have you been playing?
oh, what have I been playing? Oh man, I'm not used to ask this. I'm not used to people asking me this question so quickly. You know, so I I got to play a new game last Friday. I
Okay.
played it on the board game arena. It's a game that I had no idea what it was about. One of our friends said, "Oh, that looks cool. Let's see it." So I just read the rules real quick, got a chance to play it. It's called Q Birds. Have you heard of this one?
No, I have not.
Like there's a bunch of birds on the cards. There's like 8 species of birds, and each of them look like they're out of Minecraft. They're cube birds. And adorable art. But basically, what it is, it's a set collection game. The idea is that you are trying to get certain sets of birds. Each flock of bird needs a certain amount to make score 1 point of it or two
Okay.
points. So, for example, it might say like 6/9. That means that if you want to score one of them, you have to get at least 6 of that same bird in your hand and discard them and then keep one of them. But if you discard 9 of them and keep one, you got to keep 2 of them, 4 points. So
Okay.
the winner is the first one to get 7 different types of birds out of the 8, or 2 sets of 3 of the same bird. Okay, it's not too bad. What
Yeah.
makes it somewhat interesting, though, is the way you draft. There's a big tableau of cards in front of you, and on your turn, you place down birds on either side of one of those 4 rows of cards.
Okay.
Let's say I put down a parrot on the left side. If there is another parrot in the row at any point, all of the cards in between it, I get to take back into my hand.
Hmm.
However, the catch is you have to play all of the ones of that type that you have. So if I had 2 parrots in my hand, or even 3 or 4 parrots in my hand, I have to play all of them in order to take that set. Or you could just place down a bird that doesn't have any in the line or is right next to one that's already placed of theirs, where you don't take cards, and then you just draw 2 cards off the top of the deck.
Okay.
So that it leads to some neat little combos, and it's pretty fun. There is one rule that I absolutely hated in this, and that is, and all my game group all agreed. They got incredibly frustrated when it happened. Is that when one player out of cards from their hand, the round ends, and you immediately discard all of the cards in your hand, and everybody draws 8 cards new. So if
Oh
you were
man.
almost there to getting it, yeah. The rest of the game, I like the drafting, I like everything else. The set collection is not bad. But as soon as that round ended, everyone just like it was they were all upset. I
People were done with it, huh?
I'll be honest, even me, I was the one who triggered that, and I didn't like that. I was okay because it didn't affect me,
Yeah.
but I really didn't like it. How I thought that
Yeah.
was
I could see why. I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff.
yeah. Now, I thought of an easy solution. Like if I had a real copy of this game, I would just say, well, when the round ends, you can discard up to as many as you want and then draw back up to 8.
Mm.
That way, if you're working on a set, you should be able to keep it.
Yeah.
There's no reason that if one person ends the round that everybody gets penalized all of a sudden. That's excessive. But other than
No,
that,
no, no. Yeah, I get
it
that.
was not a bad game.
Cool, cool.
Yeah,
Oh, so the main reason why I had you go first and I asked you the question this time
yeah,
around is because all the games I played this week are stuff that I've talked about before. I just went and played some games. One is kind of newish, but I have played it recently, and that's Arkham Horror LCG. But this one specifically, I started the Dunwich cycle.
ooh, I've heard good things.
Um, yeah, so it's been interesting. Like I said before, this really gives you that Eldritch Horror, Arkham Horror feel, the big box game feel, with a small amount of time. So if you want the little bit of time, go to Elder Signs. But if you still want that epic scope where you have to investigate, where you got to find things, you got to do things, play this, the card game. The only problem is It's really hard to keep up with everything that's in the LCG as of right now, especially if you're getting into it now. I was
Right.
looking, I'm like, I need 3 more to finish off the Dunwich cycle. I can find those. But the next cycle, which is the Path of Carcosa, you can't find the base of that. So you can't even start that cycle. It's so expensive to get. And I understand it's an LCG and it's been around for about 5 years now, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But honestly, if you want people to keep giving you money, keep printing these things for newer gamers can stay in it. You're still printing the main base box. You can still get the main base box. I think I just recently saw it at Barnes and Noble not too long ago. So why aren't you printing these extra cycles if it's all about making that money? Well, you know what? Don't make it so scarce and make it the resale market harder to find.
Right.
It basically just rounds up to 4 phases. You got your Mythos phase, which you skip the first round. You have your player phase where you have a number 3 actions that you can do, whether it's moving, investigating, doing some checks, fighting, whatever. You have the monster phase. So if you got monsters, they're either hunting or they're engaged with you, so they attack your player characters. And then you got the cleanup phase where you get to draw up, get some resources, and then you go back to the Mythos phase. Mythos phase itself, pretty much any Arkham Horror game you played, bad stuff happens. You move the story along. It's got a little built-in timer, so every time a Doom token gets put on one of the cards, once it reaches a certain threshold, the agenda changes or the story moves on, and then you got the second part of it. The other part of the Mythos phase is that's where you're drawing the Mythos deck, and it could be either monsters coming out or treacheries coming out, bad things are happening, whether like this door is locked or you have to do a test to leave this area. It's phenomenal. I really enjoy it. It's a very fast-paced game. I could play this by myself in about 45 minutes, and that's with me running 2 characters because I prefer running it with 2 characters. But yeah, they just got to make it easier for people to keep up with the cycles, especially if they're just getting into it. Mind you, I've had it for a couple of years now, but I only just started really getting into solo because what happened? We got locked down. So it's really good. But yeah, just needs to make it easier for people who want to be in it.
Yeah. That makes sense. The next game I've been playing is called What the Heck, also known as Raj, also known as Vulture Culture was the version I played. And Daniel, you've probably played this game at some point under one of like the millions of names it has, an Alex Randolph game. It's a very simple concept where you have a stack of point cards in the middle of the play area, and they're anywhere from -1 to -5 points or 1 to 10 points. Most points at the end of the game wins. Okay. Everybody then has a hand of 15 cards, all numbered 1 through 15. Everybody has the exact same. The way the game is played is you flip over a point card, which is mixed up. So I'd say it's 7 points, right? And everybody takes a single one of those cards from their hand, bids it, and then flips it face up. Whoever bids the highest number will get the point card. Simple, right? So if I bid a 15 and you bid a 12 and our friend bids 2, then I get 7 points. But then all of our cards are discarded and we can never use them again, regardless of who won. However, you're probably wondering, well, what happens if 2 people bid the same number? Well, then all duplicate bids are canceled out.
Okay.
Yep. And then simple as that. However, if you have a negative point card, it's whoever bids the lowest number takes the negative point card. That's
Never
it.
played this.
Yeah. If you haven't played it, if you have a minute and a half, I will gladly show you the entire game.
I don't have a minute and a half. I got to make a podcast with you.
Oh, that's a good point. Well, I mean, we could do it we could run a 60-second ad break on Twitch and I could teach you within that time frame. No, it's absurdly fast. I've had multiple copies of this before, and I found one at a thrift store before, and I found all these different versions, and I thought they were different games until I read the rules. I'm like, this is the same one. Another branding of this same game. So we played Vulture Culture, where you're either vultures or meerkats getting points. Raj is like trading in the Middle East or in India for rugs, I think. What the heck is like kind of a more just like generic Amigo version of like, hey, let's just fight. Like it's real simple, but it's a fun game. I do encourage you try it. It's something that you can easily make yourself if you wanted to. I found a really interesting like Japanese one that looks like it was mahjong tiles, and so all your tiles would sit up in front of you. And I played that back in Albuquerque a number of years ago when I used to live
Okay.
there. So yeah, like this is one that I feel like could be a good excuse to make a really deluxe version of that game because it's such a simple and fun game and it'd be really tactile. That's
Okay.
called What the Heck,
Or vulture culture or whatever.
or Vulture Culture, or Raj, or whatever the Japanese version I had was, or yeah, like all of the different versions. So they're all pretty good.
Yeah, it's not as bad as that version of Jungle Speed that you got.
Correct. I have gotten so just for our viewers at home to understand, I do own. It's somewhere around here too. I do own a Chinese knockoff version of Jungle Speed, and the way that they claim that it's not the same is they took out the S, and I kid you not, it is Jungle Peed. No
Yeah, you
pictures.
found it what, like at a thrift store or something like that, right?
I got it at a thrift store. No pictures of the cards on the box. It's just an orange box. I think the totem is like a wooden dowel, practically. The cards aren't bad. I think it's the same art, but it's questionable to say the least. I need
Well,
to
it's
find.
funny is you're like you saw it and you went, "Hey, this is Jungle Speed. I'm going to buy this. This way, maybe I could sell it at a thrift store or a resale or something like that."
Yep.
And then our mutual friend of ours had pointed out, he's like, you bought Jungle Peed. Wait, what?
I didn't even notice the S was gone. You know what? While you're telling your next game, I just saw it over on my peripherals. I will gladly go show it to our viewers. So you tell us, what have you been playing next?
So the next game I've been playing is one I mentioned a bunch of times before, but it's still such a great filler game, and that's Dragonwood. And the reason why I want to mention this is it's easily our go-to for like a chill game, either between games or for this purposes. We used it for a ramp up. We knew we were going to play some heavy games here soon. So we play Dragonwood. It's still great. It still plays quickly. I think we finished a complete game in 25 minutes. As always, I ended up losing to my wife, but you got a tableau of cards. You're trying to beat them by playing cards out of your hand. Your two actions is either fight something in the tableau or draw a card. That simple. Whenever the draw deck runs out twice, or both dragons in the fight deck or deplete are gone, the game ends. Real simple, but oh my god, it's so fun. The art is amazing. This is easily one of my most beat up games because how much we played it. Like the cards are you're starting to see the little ripples and the little tugs of the tears and stuff like that. And I'm gonna have to get a new copy somewhere down the line. But yeah, I love this game. Phenomenal.
Very cool. Yeah, Dragonwood is absolutely wonderful. Here's the cover of Jungle Peed for our viewers at home. And as silly as that is, the card quality is not bad, but for some reason it has like almost like a Native American border to it. I'm not sure why. And then even the totem, it's wood. Normally it's plastic. And it does say Jungle Speed on it. And so do the backs of the cards. They do say it correctly, but for some reason the box just doesn't. I love my game. It's so great. I don't think I'm ever going to get rid of it. It's
So
so
before we move on to your next game, So Very Wrong About Games says it's up on BGA as well, and I think he's talking about a vulture culture or what the heck or whatnot.
okay, yeah. Hi, welcome. So Very Wrong About Games. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, if that's the game that you're talking about, let me know. Or unless it's Jungle Pede and I might be wrong. Maybe it's a different
Dragonwood.
game.
Oh yeah, Dragonwood is up there, but yeah, it's a phenomenal game.
Yeah, absolutely. I adore Dragonwood. That's one of those games that I love showing people at the shop because I know it's going to sell immediately.
Well, it's Game Right, so Game Right just does really well in that sort of stuff.
They really do. They really do. Speaking of Game Right, I played Trash Pandas with my kids the other day. God, I love Trash Pandas. Have you done this one, Daniel?
Yeah, we played this when you first got it. I almost picked up a copy of mine when I had to get an oil change at the car. I almost picked it up while I was at Walmart. It's $10.
It's $10. It's absolutely worth $10. 100%. because what you have in there is you have a deck of cards, about 60 or so cards. You have a custom die and 6 wooden tokens, and it's a push your luck game. You roll the die, and you take that token, and you can continue doing that as long as you whatever you roll is not a token you've taken already. So, for example, I roll it, I take the thief token, I roll it again, and I take like the draw 2 cards token. If I roll it again and draw either one of those two, like a thief token again, then my turn is over. However, every card that is in this game has different ways to affect other players or help you prevent that. There's a blammo card that lets you re-roll it, your last die. There's a nanners card, which lets you instead stop your rolling and just ignore the last roll and then finish your turn like normal, as if you didn't bust.
Yeah.
Then those 6 tokens, you take actions, which will either be drawing cards, stealing cards, or stashing them for points. And all of the different types of cards that have those actions also give you points for whoever has the most, second most, or third most. Incredibly simple game. My kids adore it. I like it a lot. It's up there. I'm at the point now where if you say, hey, let's play a game right game, or if Game Right is coming out with a new game, I'm in 100%.
Oh yeah. No, I'll always try them out. I don't think I've ever really disliked a game that they come out with yet. There might be a couple that I'm not a huge fan of, but
There have been a few that I had been not disappointed in, but I know that they made it for very young children. Like I'm talking 3 or 4 plus, and there's less choice to go with. Like Sleeping Queens, that one's a little questionable.
is
to me.
Forbidden Sky game right?
Which one?
Forbidden Sky, the third one of
all
the.
3 of them are.
Yeah, that was my biggest disappointment was Forbidden Sky.
Well, that's because it had to live up to the hype of being the third in the series of amazing games. Not all of them hits, and if you're ramping it up from Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert, that's a high bar to reach.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, but
Yeah.
I think Forbidden Sky has to be my biggest disappointment from them, and that's saying something. That I enjoy the really small card games a lot more than I like that big grandiose game they came up with.
No, there's one that I think is probably their worst game, and I think you agree with me, and that's Rory Story Cubes.
Oh, that's right. That is theirs. No, see, I don't consider Rory Story Cubes really a game. I guess it is because there's rules for it, but it's more of a tool. I like for like creative minded kids or people who are having trouble telling a story or something like that. It helps them become creative in that aspect. So, but other than that, I don't see it as a game.
You know which game you would like from them? I think you would be surprised with. I had it for a while and played it. It's called Stowaway 52. And it's a game they made a while back where you have 52 cards, and that's why it's called Stowaway 52. But it's in 4 decks of, I think, 14 cards. And each of those 4 decks, you just pick any card out of the entire game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you read it, and it tells you a bit of a story. And then it'll give you an A or B choice. And each one will lead you to a different card. And some will, like, so in this one, you're a stowaway in an alien spaceship, and you're trying to escape back to Earth. And so what you have to do is certain things you'll need certain items to get to. So if you go to one, they'll say, keep this as an item. Like you have an access card, keep it as an item. Do you want to go to like the hallway or do you want to go to this? And the goal of the game is you win if you're able to make it through all 52 cards without looping. Or like, because it's an infinite loop. But if you draw a card in the middle of the game and it says go to card 40 and you've already picked 40 before, then you lose. Which sounds like almost impossible, and it's not impossible, it's just difficult, but you start learning every time you play through it, you start learning all of these different patterns and going, okay, I see where this is going. It's a cool idea. I think you would like it since you like the story aspect and you're getting into solo games.
No, it sounds interesting. Yeah. But speaking of stories, nice little segue there. The next game on my list, and the reason why we played Dragonwood for a ramp up, is because we were going to start playing some storyline games. And the first one being Adventure Games, The Volcanic Island. Finally got this off the shelf. I didn't really have it on the shelf of shame because I played the other games in the series, but finally got this one started. What's different about this one, it's played in 4 scenarios rather than the normal 3 the other 2 were in.
Okay.
We've only played the first 2 scenarios, and it's not as straightforward as the other 3. So the other 2, I mean, you kind of know what's going on. You know what you're trying to build up to. This one tells you, hey, and I don't want to give spoilers. This one tells you, hey, you're going over here. You're going to start investigating for this reason. And then you're like, okay, so we start doing that. And then something else happens. And we're like, okay, we'll start taking care of that as well. And we go over there and do that. And then we move somewhere else and do something else. And it's like, okay, it's a lot more open than the other 2. Let me tell you, there's so many places to go on this one and investigate and find out. And it's got some interesting mechanics in this one where it's like you go in this one place and then you take, you know how like the small deck is just cards, usually items and stuff like that you can
Yeah.
use. This one actually, and this is going to be a slight spoiler, has locations in there as well. So if you go into one section, it actually busts out a smaller location to investigate in. And I'm like,
Interesting.
that's intriguing. This is doing some stuff that is quite different than the other 2.
Yeah.
However, there's 2 problems with it. One, we've played through 2 scenarios of this. We still don't have an idea what's going on,
Ooh,
which
that's
is
rough.
kind of, yeah, we kind of know what we're trying to do, but because there's so many curveballs being thrown over this way and that way, we're like, wait, how did that happen? And the big flaw is the chapters end abruptly. You do all these things, you do what it's saying to do. Okay, let's go do this, let's go find this, let's go look for this. Oh, by the way, that's the end of chapter 2. Blah, blah, blah. Pull this, that. And like, pull this card. Okay, we pulled this card. That's the end of chapter 2. You read the story and you're like, wait, what just happened? How are we already done with chapter 2? We barely got like half of the stuff we need. What is going on? We were following the trail, and then the trail decided, hey, that's the end of it. Moving on to chapter 3. Okay. And so it, like I said, it just hits you. Both chapters ended very abruptly, and we're just like, wait, what's going on? But I do enjoy it. I don't know if I like it more than Monochrome Ink at this point, just because again, it's so open-ended. I don't know what's going on, and the chapters just end abruptly, and you're just like, wait, what happened? But it's fun. It's still fun. We're still enjoying it and having a good time with it.
Very cool. The last one I'm going to talk about today is one that I received as a Christmas gift from a mutual friend of ours. And it was a small little thing. And honestly, like the components, the card box was kind of like, it felt like the soft cardboard, you know, like that feeling where it's
Mm-hmm.
like glossy, but it feels soft in a way where it's like flimsy. Um,
Think, what's that restoration? The island one?
hmm, oh yeah, no, it's not corrugated though.
But it,
It
it feels like it's like that flimsy, like what
yeah,
the where you're expecting a thicker box.
you know like when you go to like the dollar store and you buy a deck
Mm.
of cards versus a bicycle deck of cards and you
Yeah,
open
yeah,
it up and it doesn't bend, it just you know flops over.
yeah, yeah.
That's the kind of cardboard that this box was in, and it's just a deck of cards, and it's called Dr. Esker's Notebook, and it's effectively kind of like an escape room or a puzzle room, and the idea is you have these solution cards, and they're numbered 0 through 9, and every one of the puzzles that you look through, you start with the one that says start. Once you solve the puzzle, it'll give you either a 2, 3, or 4 digit code, and then you line up the solution cards and you flip them face up, and if there is a picture that's common amongst all the cards and really obvious that those are supposed to be oriented that way,
Uh-huh.
like for example, like one of them might be like I'm just gonna make something up, like a landscape, right? If a landscape is across the middle of those 3 cards, then that means you solved the puzzle. But then that landscape corresponds to one of the other's packets of cards, and there's 9 puzzles altogether. It it was really well designed. I am impressed with how neat those puzzles are. There was a
For as
couple
flimsy as those cards are.
as flimsy as the cards were. I mean, it didn't need to be anything good, right? And I'm sure it wasn't like crazy expensive, but as a fan of escape rooms, and I'm a huge fan of escape rooms, and you know this, I have
Hmm.
almost all the unlocks. I have so many of the exits. I've tried to get just about every escape room game I can get. This I wasn't expecting anything, and it blew me out of the water. It was really impressive. I if you're interested, I'll be happy to lend it to you, Daniel.
I'll have to look check it out. I got a lot going on right now. I got a lot of editing to do after this.
Yay.
And spoiler for what's about to happen, well, we'll explain a little bit about what's going on in the future.
Oh, ooh, ooh, anticipation. I'm your co-host, and I don't even know what you're talking about. That's what's so
Yes,
exciting.
yes, you do.
No, I don't. Anyway, so what's the last game you've been playing, Daniel?
Oh, come on. We both know what it is. Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion. It's still the most played game this year so far. I just checked the stats while I was writing this script up. I've played 17 games since December 26th.
Oh wow, wow, that's
It,
wow.
yeah, no, we've gotten a lot done. We play usually about 2 or 3 a night. And this one has to have this past scenario or session had to have one of the best memorable moments. The first game, we did things, it worked out, we won. The second scenario, however, that we did, oh my god, we thought we were going to fail. This is why it led to one of our most memorable moments. We thought we were going to fail, and again, not going to say too many spoilers about this, but there was a lot going on. We were at that point where you're like, you know what, just spend your cards to get your experience, because you can keep your experience even if you fell around the ones that you made from your cards. You don't get like the end of round scenario and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, let's just spend our cards, get our scenarios. Pretty much everybody's exhausted. There's one character left. They got like 3 more turns before of short rest before they fail or they get exhausted and we fail the scenario. And yet somehow, with 2 short rests left, they killed the last 2 creatures on the board because it was a kill all enemy scenario. And it's just like, how did we do that? How did we succeed and move on? Oh, it was that stand up moment where you're like, oh my god, how did this happen?
That's great. That's
So
fantastic.
yeah,
That doesn't happen in games enough, honestly.
yeah, no, it does because we were literally sitting there like, you know what? Let's just burn our cards. This way we can get our experience because we're probably gonna have to replay the scenario. So let's get our characters as far up as we can. This way, maybe if we beat the next scenario, they can level up or whatnot. And somehow we ended up being able to win it. And it was just one of those shocking moments. You're stand up from the table, like, I can't believe that just happened. And that goes down to when we go with our top 8 debate. One of the things we talk about a lot is the memorable moments. And time again, Gloomhaven just keeps giving me these moments where you were talking about it, where your son at one point, Leroy Jenkins, the room, and you had to go it alone by yourself because he ended up getting killed. And you're just like,
Yep.
but it's something you get to talk about. And this
Yeah.
is like, that's why you don't go into a room by yourself.
Right. I'm looking forward to the day where I can pick that back up again. I do miss it a little bit, but I mean, he didn't like it, so I can't. Who am I
Yeah,
to?
no, you can't force him to play it. But I really enjoy the game. I had such a great time playing this game. And it just proves to me why Gloomhaven, and I don't consider Jaws the Lion any different than Gloomhaven other than like an updated rule set. They're the same game, and I'm probably going to consider Frosthaven, that series of game, pretty much the same because it's the same core value. Why
Yeah,
it's in my number 1 game of all time. These things are just, it's so good.
that's awesome. Well done. Well, those are some fun games. We hope that you get some ideas on what you can play next and why we've been enjoying them.
Oh,
But
yeah.
playing games is only half as important as creating the atmosphere around it.
That is true.
I'm trying to do like a dice tower style, like segue, like really thematic, like dramatic and stuff. But no, I don't.
Yeah, we're not good at that kind of thing.
No, not. We're getting better. We're getting better. Every since we started saying good morning to each other in the morning.
Not
Let's
the
let
morning.
so let's ask the audience, what do you do to create the best atmosphere for playing board games? Now, we didn't clarify what we meant by that. We just left it as is. And so there is some really great posts on this. This is, I think, one of our more playful, funnier ones. We
Yeah,
will have to skip a couple, but that's, minor detail.
which
Uh,
was also very, very difficult to come up with a list for.
Right.
I thought it was
Right.
like, oh, this is easy. Oh wait,
No, I have a solid 8.
I have
You'll
a
see.
solid 8. It's just the top 4 are stuff that I require more, and which are more important for a good atmosphere
Yeah.
than the bottom 4.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Jolene started us off by saying, "Good lights, drinks, and snacks."
All very important.
Absolutely.
Jason says he plays games with his wife and enjoys playing them.
Yeah, plays games my wife enjoys playing. That's an amazing answer, honestly. You and I
Because that's
both.
what you do. Both you and I, yeah, I was gonna say both of
When
us
we have
do
a
that.
good game night, when the wife has a good game night. That's
Especially
how.
during lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't get a much better atmosphere than that. Tony says thematic music and whiskey.
Now, this is a guy that speaks to my heart. I'm a whiskey guy. I like whiskey. I haven't drank in years, or at least a year now.
Now,
And then Sean adds, "This is the way." Do you get that reference?
no.
The Mandalorian.
Okay. I still haven't seen it. How's it end? No, anyway.
Amazing.
Camille says music is the easiest and probably the most important. Also, reading some flavor text before the game seems like a good idea.
And I'm going to skip the next one. Matt says he never plays a game without mellowdice.org, which is something you actually recently showed me.
Yep, yep. Melodice.org is a really neat one. There's a few other companies that do it. Melodice, I believe, specifically does YouTube playlists, stuff that's already on YouTube. It's questionable sometimes, but I'm not gonna lie. I'll go more into this later, but I have created playlists for games as well, so I can't
I
argue
have
that.
as well. And when I get to it, maybe spoiler, I have a recommendation for people.
Cool, great. And then VA says we do music. Spotify playlist called "Loot Music for Alchemists." When we played Alchemists, folk metal for Zolkin, or Tolkien
Tolkien.
soundtracks for dwarves. Yeah, folk metal and Tolkien soundtrack. I can't talk for dwarves. Fall spooky goth music for Mysterium. Gotta have the ambience.
And so you're going to notice when we go through this list, music is the big part.
Mm-hmm.
Because next is +1 for music from Amanda. I get easily distracted, bothered by environmental noises when I'm concentrating, so it helps a lot. Some
Absolutely.
people need that white noise.
All right. Clinton says beer, music, appropriate lighting, and snacks, cigar boxes to roll in. I don't understand that
Whatever
part.
works.
Yeah.
Jesse says, and excuse me, we turn on the lights and clear off the table. Sometimes if we're feeling frisky, we'll turn off whatever ball game is on in the background.
Yeah.
And
Joey.
sometimes when we had game night, I would put a hockey game on in the background just to have on.
Yeah. Yeah. And
You know why?
oh yeah, because hockey. You like hockey. Yeah. No, but here's the thing. This is why it never bothered me. The people that may be distracted by the hockey game would normally sit with their back facing
Yeah.
which works, like I don't get distracted by a TV playing in the background. I've grown up like falling asleep to TVs. Like TVs are my dad used to always watch the TV. There was always TV noise going on. So I'm definitely used to it. It's kind of weird that if I don't have TV noise in the background.
And my thing is, I would put it on for the background just to see what score is usually a game I want to watch. And for me itself, is just, it never distracted me. I would just look up, oh, hey, look, the score is 5-3. And then I look up again and it's tied. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I wonder what happened. Go back to the game.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It wouldn't bother you. Which one? Oh, yeah. Joey says, make sure I'm alone. And he says, I'm the only one in my circle who plays. I gotta solo it all. That's sad, but I appreciate the way he does it. I like how he says the best way to have a good game night as a solo player, you gotta make sure you're alone.
You're alone.
If you're around people, that makes solo gaming really not fun.
And Brendan says music and lighting, and sometimes ambient sound effects.
Absolutely. Ken says music.
Paul says, kick everyone out.
All right, whatever works.
I'm assuming he's a solo player too.
Right, exactly. Austin says game room with a big table, background music, and proper lighting.
Okay, while he was mentioning that, it just made me think of what was it, on Kickstarter a few years back or something like that. They were coming out with that gaming table that had Bluetooth speakers hooked into it, and it had like the lighting tracks underneath. And I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, if I had $5,000, I would love to buy that table. But
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree with it. And this is your go.
David says, honestly, just invite friends and include a little food. Very simple and good times always happen.
And Dennis kind of agrees. Invite friendly people.
Valerie says, no gadgets unless one is playing music, I think is what she was trying to say.
Yep. Ron says stream some appropriate ambient music on the big screen and set the table with complimentary decorations from around the house. That's the first one about actually decorating. I love it.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Pictures too. That's fantastic.
Brian says, usually some friendly small talk while everyone arrives. I try to have drinks, snacks available during this time, typically congregating in the kitchen. I try to have a game planned out ahead and ready to play. We have a dedicated area in the basement, so I try to run a heater or dehumidifier ahead of time, depending on season. Having some chill music going, try to make it as comfortable as possible comfortable and fun as possible.
Yep, absolutely.
And Juan was adding if he can come over and play games with him.
Right. Joel says using Melodice is usually as far as I go, but sometimes it's badly curated lists or gets distracting with some games, which we have experienced, and I don't disagree with. I know exactly what you're talking about, Joel.
Let's see. Depends if I host a Cthulhu themed game. And this is from Garrett, I usually sacrifice nasty neighbors, but it's getting a bit problematic as I'm running out of them. I love it sometimes when we get the jokey ones on here.
Yeah.
That are not like crazy jokey ones.
Well, some people know how to joke, right? Michael says as long as there's enough oxygen.
Yeah. Ken says, turn on the lights to my table and play some music through. I'm not going to say the name because I might set mine off, and just drink and be happy. Just think it's one of those, whether it's the Amazon version.
Yep, absolutely. Jeff says, I put games on the table and say, let's play one.
Abby says, music, drinks, food, and games.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Dodge Darren says, I do like a little beer.
And then Matthew says, dark atmospheric music, 24 electric flickering candle lights, a roasted chicken, French bread, some wine and light and mead, a fruit and vegetable platter, my half cloak. The mister is doing a pine scent as it bellows its mist in the air. The fan is off to the side on low, just enough to rustle the hairs, but not enough to rustle the papers. Set the temperature down to 69 degrees, so it's a slight chill, but nothing too undaunting. Ambience is set. Let's do some D&D or some horror-based games.
Now that man knows how to play. Well done.
Yeah, I can't turn my thermostat down to 69. It might freeze my unit.
Right? And also almost as thematic, Michael says Cheez-Its. Lots of Cheez-Its.
The horror.
The horror.
Keating says, stocked kitchen, cold beer and cocktails, decent lighting, soft white, music, and typically a games teacher to limit frequent visits to the rulebook. That's what we have you for in our game group.
Right? Well, I got a story for you later. All right. Larry says, poke one person in the eye and kick another in the shins. Get this party started. I don't know if that's a reference to anything, but I'm good.
Scott says, air purifier.
To set the atmosphere, yeah. Ionizing the air. Anyway, yeah, I get it. Well done, Scott.
And he must have played a lot with Magic characters. Ooh, or players. Ooh.
Right. Ooh. Another Scott says, surround sound music thematic to what we are playing.
Kelly says, good friends, good music, and a good drink.
And I'm so glad I have this last one. Mike simply posted a screenshot from the game Atmosphere. Yes. Yes, Mike. Yes. Couldn't agree more. Oh, that's brilliant. That is the mic drop right there. Get it? Mic
And before we
drop. Anyway, sorry.
and before we get into our list, so very wrong about games in our chat says be respectful of people's time.
He's absolutely right. Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. Because sometimes, you're gonna want to get together, of course, but some people don't have obligations of what they want to do. Some do. And so accommodating them, that's tricky.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree.
So
All right,
shall we use the coin of doom?
let's do the coin of doom.
As always, Daniel, let's find out who goes first. I'll start us off. My number 8 idea, what I think is one of the most important ones, or at least the eighth important one, to setting that is lighting. I don't do it that often because I don't have fadeable lights really in my game area, but I do think that's important. Specifically, what we will do is I think there should be enough light to be able to see the board, but enough ways to dim it to create the right atmosphere. And the way I normally accomplish that is when we play at night, I don't have any of the adjacent room lights on. It's only just at center. So that is the focal point of the light right above the table. It still feels dark because everything else around you is dark, but what you're focusing on is nice and visible to see. I think important lighting. A good friend of mine actually has LED controllable colored lights that he actually sets the color based on the game.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, so my first one, or my number 8 here, is something that the other people were mentioning: food. You and I are both married. We know what hangry can do.
Yes. Yes.
So especially if you're having one of those long game nights where you're starting at like 9 o'clock in the morning and playing till midnight or something like that,
Yeah.
it's good to have food on hand with actual meals or just having
Mhm.
snacks. Just provide munching. Pause the game if you need to eat, if it's not food that's friendly for games, or if the
Right.
person who owns the game is like, you know what, guys, let's just keep playing. It's fine. Some people are
Right.
like that. Some people aren't. Just make sure you be respectful to other people's games while you're eating, or take a pause and go eat, or have game-friendly food on hand, like
Right.
M&Ms or Skittles or something like that. Stuff that's not going to get a lot of stuff on your hands.
Yep. No, I don't disagree with that. I feel like that's one of the least important things as far as setting the atmosphere for the game itself while gaming, but it's setting a perfect atmosphere for a game night. I mean, that's like a party platter.
Yes
That makes
and
sense.
no, because again, hangry. If somebody's hungry, it's not going to lead to a good atmosphere.
It's true. It's a solution to the problem. You're not wrong. I don't disagree with you. It, yeah. My next one is a very simple one that I feel like a lot of people overlooked, and I need to fix this. And I think you just need good seats, because if you're not focusing on sitting on a wooden, I sit on a wooden chair here, and that's because those are the only ones that still last in my house now, because our old ones broke down. They were super comfortable, but
Yeah.
like light falling off of them now. Yeah, so we ended up getting rid of all those. So we want to get some really good, comfortable seats, and so that way we can not focus on properly sitting or being uncomfortable. You can focus on the game itself. Comfortable seats is my number 7.
My number 7, seating.
Seating, yes, sir.
Everything you said. Comfortable seats. I have some really old dining room chairs where we play games usually,
Mhm.
and they hurt my back. I can imagine what they're doing to other people too. Mind you, I don't have the best back in the world. So yeah, we're gonna probably end up getting some more comfortable dining room chair seats to sit in while we're up there. But yeah, seating is very important, because if you're doing one of those long haul game nights, they can really wreck your back if you don't have something comfortable to sit in. Hence why I
Absolutely.
bought this chair for when we're recording.
That's true, because our recording sessions can go a little longer. My number 6 is setting the scene, and it's something I don't tend to do that often. And what I mean is, like, I've always enjoyed the games that are so thematic, where it has a whole little like paragraph at the beginning of the game to set the tone for the game. And what I mean by that is, like, Horrified is a perfect example, because as soon as you pull out the board, it has like an old campy horror. We've warned you. If you proceed, you may be at risk. Like that kind of thing. I
Yeah.
love that idea. I'm not very good at role playings, and I imagine this works better in a more of a role playing setting. But
Mhm.
getting that scene set, if you're about to play a really epic game, and just spending a few minutes to talk about the setting and put in some theatrics to it. Even if something as simple as playing like a pirate game and having everybody talk like "Yar, there be whiskey in this rum," like
Yeah, that kind of stuff gets on my
yeah,
nerves. But
like,
yeah, getting into
look
it.
at that booty, it's like, oh, that's a little weird, but yeah, you're not wrong. Setting the scene and getting people in character, that's my number 6.
Alrighty, so my number 6 here, as I get stuff moved out of the way, there we go, is minimizing distractions. This is an important thing for game night in general and setting a good atmosphere, because if you're not concentrating on the game, you're not in the atmosphere. And that's, if possible, play without as many interruptions, put the phone away, and try to be engaged in the game you're playing. Don't be playing games on your phone while playing board games with your friends. And it's
I'm listening.
this is important. It's just the minimizing distractions is a big thing. We talked about having a hockey game in the background. It might have been a distraction for people, but there was a couple that don't like sports anyways. And then there's one person who does, but he's got his back to it and it's not going to distract him. And I don't think it ever would anyways. And me, I enjoy sports, but I'm not engaged in the game. I'm engaged in what we're playing.
We've never once told you it's your turn because you are engrossed in the game. Never once.
Yeah.
And that's saying
So
something.
just
I know how much of a hockey fan you are.
yeah. So minimizing distractions is the best way possible to create a good atmosphere. If you have to, leave your phone at the door where you can still hear it if something happens. But, if you have to, put it away. If you know it's going to distract you, turn it off or put it away or put it somewhere where you can still hear it, but it's not going to be in your hand.
I strongly suggest to anybody who has trouble, like if they're worried about notifications, get a smartwatch. They are absolutely worth it, 100%.
In fact, I use my smartwatch while we're recording just in case, like, if my wife needs to get a hold of me or someone needs to get a hold of me, I can still get the message.
Yep, exactly. Just look at your watch real quick. Okay, you're good. Now I know what time it is. I'm perfect.
Yeah.
So my next one, and this is a very specific one. This is number 5, but it really does a great job of setting the atmosphere, and that's play games on holidays. And I mean like play games that make sense for those holidays, because one of my favorite game nights is Halloween. I love playing games on Halloweens. And that's because I have all these horror themes that are so thematic and everybody's already in the mood to play all these horror games and
Spooky time.
yeah, exactly. It's the spooky season. We want to do spooky things. So playing during those seasons, I'll almost always during 4th of July, I'll play a round of Hanabi, or maybe even lanterns. Those are both very thematic ones.
Christmas, pull out gingerbread house.
Yeah, gingerbread. Yeah, gingerbread house. I recently got a few new Christmas games like Christmas Story and Christmas Vacation, which are, but it's fine. It's you're in the mood, and that makes it so much better because of it. Recently, Prospero Hall just made the
Groundhog Day.
Yeah, and I've been wanting to buy that for next year. So
for Groundhog Day.
Or Groundhog Day, and we could play it 6 weeks back to back. No, but yeah, play around holidays. It makes already the atmosphere is that good. It's just a good excuse to play thematically appropriate games. It's so fun.
All right, and so my number 5 kind of counteracts with what I was saying about number 6, but I do want to say, and that is put on a movie in a background, get that atmospheric noise from a movie if it's an IP. So for me specifically, I have the classic monster movies. So depending on which monster we're playing, if it's the Invisible Man, I'm going to put that movie on or something like that, just to have it in the background. If people aren't easily distracted by the noise, but like if my favorite thing is the one time we played it with the Invisible Man and he did his action where he moved and pulled things off the board, the TV started cackling the Invisible Man laugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, that was fitting.
Yeah. Oh man, that's brilliant. I love that.
And think about it. If you put Jaws on while you're playing the hidden movement game Jaws from Ravensburger, and you hear people screaming as your Jaws character is saying, "Hey, I ate some people," that's very fitting as well. So if it's not going to be something that is very distracting to people, but adds the ambience because you can hear the lines, the characters, I say put a movie on in the background. Don't have it loud where it's blasting in your ears, but just enough where, like, you say Jaws character ate some people and you hear screaming in the background and people saying, "Get out of the water."
Get out of the water, run for your lives. Stop doing belly flops. I don't remember if that was a quote. My next one is a really obvious one that a lot of people touch base on. But I feel like just playing with the right people will help set the tone or the right atmosphere. Like there's people that I love playing games with, like, but they don't set the tone for the game. They don't
Mhm.
get into the story as much as others do. And like if
They're,
that's
they're, they're more about going through the motions rather than getting into what's going
right.
on.
Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, and I'm not a thematic gamer, so I'm guilty of that for sure. But like if I want to play with like I one of our friends, one of our mutual friends, he's an old theater major. So I mean, playing role playing games with him, so fun, so fun. Really brings out the characters, and that's awesome.
All right, so moving on to, and these ones are my more important for creating the proper atmosphere.
Right.
And my number 4 here is proper equipment. And what I mean about that is if there's an app, use the app. Adventure, the card game I was telling you about, there's an app integration where you have a narrator. And it makes it so much easier, especially since some people aren't the best readers. For me, I'm a great reader, but I read faster than I can speak out loud. So sometimes I stumble over words. And that's not an issue for me, but I just read so fast that I stumble over the words when I'm trying to read out loud. Use the
Mhm.
app integration, use your tools. If you do have an app integration, I recommend using an iPad or a tablet. This way, people can see it instead of a small screen of a phone. Using an iPad and a tablet makes it much more viewable for people. Um, Case in point, Mansions of Madness. Imagine trying to run that game on a phone this big when you could have a tablet this big
Yeah.
and doing those puzzles and stuff like that. It's important. It helps create a better atmosphere. Again, if you do have those app integrations, use a Bluetooth speaker to help get the ambient noise from the app out to everybody instead of using that little small stereo speaker that the tablets usually have.
Yeah.
Get that surround sound Bluetooth if you can. If you can't use a tablet, use a computer if you can get those apps on your computer. I do this with Gloomhaven for the Gloomhaven helper. I can run Gloomhaven Helper on my phone, but at least everybody can see it on the screen when I use the Gloomhaven Helper app on it. So, just of all possible, use the proper equipment to make a easier and better game night for people.
That's right. Very good. My number three is kind of a weird one. It's the smells. I specifically put smells, and I say this not because of fixing smells of gamer. No, that's not my intent. There was one person who touched base on it and had like a sandalwood smell or
Oh
something
yeah,
very
yeah, no. I get where you're going with this. It just
um
made me think of the other one because remember
there
my little
there
dig at
was
Magic players.
there was a company a while back that I saw at a convention that was actually they would sell these little beads of like plastic, I think,
Hmm.
and they were infused with a really strong smell, but they would sell them thematically based on the game. And the one, like, I got a little packet of it, and you opened it up, and it smelled like a campfire. And it was actually a really authentic smell. It was really strong. And it was just something you could just leave on the table, put in a little bowl, decorative bowl, and man, did it set the tone really well. I used it for a couple of games. I didn't have many games that used campfires, but I I just remember the only reason I never went in, or I never bought more is because a lot of the smells I had didn't quite work with the games that I play.
Yeah, yeah,
But
no.
100%, if you're trying to set a theme for like an RPG and you're like, oh well, you're at the campsite when suddenly you're ambushed. No, that's what you want, or an infuser or incense or something like that.
All right, so my next one on my list here is a crossover.
Oh,
And this is lighting. Having proper lighting can create the best atmosphere for gaming. Sometimes you're going to need brighter lighting for this way you can see the board and see everything that's going on. If you're playing a horror game and the board is slightly important, but not completely important, you can dim the lights a little, put some flickering candle lights out there, and you play your horror game in the spooky ambiance. Like, imagine doing that for Mysterium when you're playing Mysterium and you're trying to figure out, and you're having like a seance and stuff like that. I think it would be phenomenal. it creates a great atmosphere and it helps people get into what they're doing.
Right.
Um, the big thing about it is, like I said, you've got to be able to still see the board. So you can make it where the board is really well lit, but still make the outside, as you were mentioning, the outside area darker. Have those flickering lights in the background. Lighting is very important to make a great atmosphere.
Yeah, I completely agree. And mine, this I feel is going to be a crossover with your number one. I might be wrong. But my number two is music. I completely agree with all of our viewers. I think music is one of the most important things. It is my second most important thing with setting the right atmosphere is choosing a playlist that makes sense. You know, if
Mhm.
I'm playing like an island theme game, I'm going to put on Hawaiian luau music. If I have, a medieval theme, I'm going to put on a hammered dulcimer. Absolutely. It really does bring out a really cool flavor to it. But even like silly games, like party games and stuff, having music with lyrics is still okay. Like
Mhm.
one of my favorite things is I have a huge playlist of songs that have to do with trains, and I play it every time I play Ticket to Ride. I have Locomotive Breath, Do the Locomotion, This Train Don't Stop Here Anymore.
Ticket to
Everything.
Ride.
Ticket to Ride, the actual Beatles song. Yes, every song that I have found has references to trains in it. Um, anything I could find is in that playlist, and it's just does it distract a little bit? Yes, but is it funny? It's worth it. Yes.
So on my number two is music
Yep. Oh
or
wow.
ambient noise. I put them together.
Okay.
And for me, this is the main thing that I do, the main usage. This is the easiest way to create great atmosphere when you're playing a game. Music can set a tone. If you're playing a horror game, you can play spooky soundtracks like Halloween soundtracks or music, or like when I was playing Arkham Horror LCG, I had something that actually really went well with an Arkham Horror style game with that creepy melodramatic noise and stuff like that. If you're playing something like Viticulture, play some classic Italian music that you're familiar with, or what I'm trying to remember. We were playing, I think it was Yeto, when I put on ancient Japanese music.
Yep.
And I remember you snapped your head and go, great choice, because it got us into, we're in the feudal Japan era and playing this. It really sets a phenomenal atmosphere for people to play in.
Yeah.
And my recommendation that I said I was going to bring up is I listen to a lot of a group called Midnight Syndicate. You can find them on Amazon Music. You can find them probably elsewhere, but they tend to do a lot of horror sounds. So I have a lot of horror games. They work there. They also have a Dungeons and Dragons soundtrack that goes great with Gloomhaven. There's points where I'm playing it and we're like in this case in point when we're playing the memorable moments I was talking about earlier at the top of this podcast. This was playing, and it was at the fight where there was a sword fight in the actual sound. So you hear swords clinking and stuff going on, and we're doing that like almost at towards the end of the round, and you're just like, this is fitting. It's adding more to what we're doing. This is why it's going to be a memorable moment, because you're using all sorts of senses. You're using your hearing and your fighting. So you're using your brain, your sight. Phenomenal.
That's awesome. I'm surprised that's both our number twos, and we both have one that's above that.
Hmm.
I'm curious about. Do you have any guesses what mine is?
Not a clue.
Okay. I
I thought
imagine.
music would have been your number one. I also thought what my number one is would be your number one.
Okay. I'm curious. Have I already brought it up?
You may have.
Okay. So my number one is a very specific thing that I do that I love doing to set the tone of the game night. And that is it's very specific. You put a big speaker under the table. And what I mean by that is that if you have you touch base on it, if you have app integration or soundtracks that are designed actually specifically for the game, like say Escape Curse of the Temple, timer apps that have that sound in it. If you put a nice big bassy speaker under the table where everyone can hear it at the same thing, but when it's a loud bass clasp or a loud like thud in the soundtrack, that whole table will vibrate in a way and it'll shake you to your bones to feel so in tune with it. And a perfect example of this is what one of the reasons why I appreciate that they put atmosphere that picture when when those characters in Nightmare and Atmosphere come in, there's a loud thunderclap, and he goes stop, and he screams it, and it shakes, and it is incredibly nerve-wracking when you have a speaker under your table, and then suddenly out of nowhere, you know, and everyone just like drops the pieces, and we just like practically have a heart attack, and then he just goes stop maggots, Oh my God, it's so incredible. It is one of the best things. And now, don't do this with music. I don't agree with having the loud music underneath it. But if you have an app that has sound with it, or
Mansion the Madness,
or music that's designed for the game, like Bullet that's coming out with Level 99, they made a whole
Rising Sun has a soundtrack for it. Blood Rage as well.
Yep. Put a speaker under your table and let them feel the vibrations through the table while you're playing. You're not going to get more thematic or more atmosphere than that.
Alrighty, that's a good choice. Kind of goes with your number 2, so fitting. My number 1, you have mentioned.
Is that Friends?
Playing with the proper group.
Yeah.
You need to play with the right group to make a great atmosphere. People you can joke with, people you're comfortable with. Again, I'm not saying don't invite new people over to your game nights and stuff like that.
No, you're saying explicitly don't invite not fun people. You don't get invited to the game night. You're not fun. No, that's not fun.
Don't invite new people or other people, but it's this way. If you curate the right group, it's going to make a proper atmosphere. If you're playing like a legacy game, or you're playing with that same group of people, you want to make sure it's the best group of people that you can play with. Because one, if you're playing a co-op, it doesn't lead to tabletop quarterback. Now you could give each other helpful hints. That's not a problem there, but it's much easier when you play with games you get along with. Now, we talked about playing games at the shop. There are some people that I've played games with there that I would never invite over to my house.
Right. Sure.
And that's what I'm talking about, playing with a proper group. When you're doing these things, not saying you can't invite new people. In fact, I've met a lot of new people because of gaming and really good friends because of it. But you want to set yourself that proper group, especially, again, when you're taking those campaign style games, when you're making those legacy games, when you're doing these big, grandiose games, you want the proper people, or even better yet, you want to make sure people who are okay with all the other stuff that we were talking about, setting up the ambience, people who enjoy the music or who don't get distracted by their phones or a movie in the background or a hockey game or whatever's going on.
Right.
That's why it's important for me to play with the proper group.
I couldn't agree more. So we hope you came up with, or you have some good ideas now after listening to this. Next time you get to plan your next future game night and you want it to be a really special thing, I hope this will be worth your time.
4 crossovers.
4 crossovers. That's not bad. I'm surprised fewer people picked smell. We get all those senses in here,
I don't really think of smell all that much because of my allergies, especially this time of year when the wind's all kicked up.
That's right. That's another thing you and I have in common. We suffer really bad from allergies.
It's kind of like right now. Is it COVID or is it allergies?
Oh my goodness, it's so paranoia inducing, isn't it? Like you wake up with a cough, you're like, oh God. Oh
God, I can't. Oh wait, no, my nose is just stuffy. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, okay. Whew. Ooh, thank goodness I'm only suffering this way.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Yeah. So, but yes, I couldn't agree more. We hope that you guys will get back to gaming soon. We hope that your next game nights will be special moments that you're going to remember for a long time. And we hope that this helped you create those moments. So, Daniel, do you have anything else to add before we send off?
Yes, there's a couple things I want to talk about before we go on.
Go ahead.
One being next week's Chits and Giggles. It's not going to be a topic. We are going to discuss it on with the Facebook Revolution post. But next week is going to be the compare and contrast again that we did last month, which was Funkoverse versus Unmatched.
Yep.
This week or next week, we are going to be talking about Space Base versus
Machikoro.
And we like doing this topic because we figured it gives you the best information of which game would be better for you, or maybe you'll like both games, whatever. But it's good comparison for us. Second off, the following week, that is our anniversary. We've been doing this for a year now. We have, as I posted last week's, we had 68 episodes uploaded within the year.
Wow.
That's what happens when we are locked down and doing 3 podcasts for 6 months. So we are going to be doing a special anniversary Chits and Giggles. We haven't come up with the topic for that just yet. We're working on that. But we do have a special top 8 debate that we'll be recording in 2 weeks. Do you want to give them a heads up what that's going to be?
Nope. Yeah, sure. What is it going to be, Daniel? Let's talk about this.
So the special top 8 debate in 2 weeks is going to be the top 8 debate of all the champion games. So we're going to take all 8 games out of all the top 8 debate episodes, rank them through the BGG ranking, taking 1 all the way down to 8, and we're going to argue those points as our special anniversary, the first year champions.
Yep, first year champions. Top 8 debate champions. That's going to be really special. It's going to be something phenomenal.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. Just want to give you a heads up of what we're doing, because it's going to be a couple weeks in advance, but we're not going to be like, hey, stick around with us while we pick our next topics. We have them planned out.
Yep, absolutely. So, with that being said, we hope you've enjoyed our episode today as much as we've enjoyed making it. That's so cheesy. I hate saying that. Yeah, we hope you've enjoyed listening to us today. I tried to keep a serious face. If you ever want to join us, like our friend So Very Wrong About Games did in the chat, you can totally do so. Join us at twitch.tv/everydayboardgames.
As well as you can find all video re-uploads of these podcasts that we record on YouTube at Everyday Board Games 2020. And if you like what you find, give us a subscribe and a like. It helps us grow on the platform. As well as all audio versions found on most podcast platforms under Everyday Board Games podcast, including Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, and Podbean.
And if you ever want to contact us directly with ideas for future episodes, or if you just want to reach out and say hi, feel free to do so at everydayboardgames2020@gmail.com.
You can also get in contact with us on Twitter at the official EBG Podcast Twitter handle.
And we want to thank you for tuning in. As always, I've been Daniel.
And I've been Daniel.
And thank you for tuning in to Everyday Board Games.
Have a good one.